you sure? But I got up time of day, and take a turn. But if it's for foreigner, how you gonna fight? They call out your number. Can't control a lie. Repeat what you've been told. You need to find the bullet. You can see the enemy. You need to point your finger. Prove your loyalty.
An Eskimo, and you tell them about the music, about your mom making me play bass.
Are we ready? Yeah. Okay, can we go in for a two-shot? Boone and Mike?
Oh, yeah. I met D. Boone when I was 13, and he was 13 also, and where we lived in the park, he's playing Army, and he fell out of a tree on me, and D. Boone played guitar. This is the tree. And I come out here, I think right here, and he leaps out on me. I was like, whoa, and this guy in this t-shirt, you know. He goes, you're not Eskimo. I go, no, I'm not Eskimo. And so we start talking, and, you know, he couldn't find his friends. They all had bailed or something, so we start walking back across the field, and he's telling me all these little bits, you know, like I'm thinking, God damn, this is the smartest dude in the world. You know, he's just rattling off all these little bits. And the next day, he brings me to his pad in Park Western, and he plays me this record, and all the bits he was doing was from this record. And I'm like, God, D. Boone, you know, you didn't make any of this up. This was all stuff that you had heard off the record, you know. But I didn't know it at the time. But I was quite smitten with him. So that's actually our beginning. It's right here.
Well, after 10 years, makes a mirror. All the Reagan seems quite a feel. Yeah, it's easier in a pack. Shouting anthems and waving guns. No one knows what to do. Everybody, swing to the right! You know, man, give me a reason, give me sunshine, give me a ride! Don't we know what to do? And we've done it before! Everybody, swing to the right!
There was something magical about Mike Watt and D. Boone. Mm-hmm. Maybe because they grew up together, knew each other so well. Mm-hmm. He just loved D. Boone.
But the Minutemen were just so unique, and I guess, you know, something like that can't really, it's impossible for something like that to come about unless you're, you know, Mike Watt and D. Boone growing up together from when you're little kids.
When you meet some people in your life and you play music with them and there's some kind of chemistry, you know, it's this magic thing that happens, you know, and it really happened with those guys.
They were like three bros. It was like they probably went to elementary school together. I mean, they were probably all born in the same hospital at the same time. Not from the same mother, though.
When I first started going over D. Boone's house, the first thing D. Boone got me into was history. He was reading all these history books. But then another thing he used to do was play guitar. His mother made him play guitar. She played guitar when she was younger.
At first I was playing bass, but my mom didn't want me to play bass. She wanted him to play bass. Well, it's not that he had to, but he agreed. And,
I agree.
Yeah, you know,
okay.
so.
Dennis's mom wanted them to learn instruments and stay off the streets and stay out of trouble, so she would let them play.
In fact, I remember one of the neighbors saying to her, you know, how can you stand playing there, I mean them in the house making all that racket? And she goes, well, I know where my son is.
like this, like this, all the papers play about Johnny on the radio, shot at David, got his gun and shot at them.
You know, when D. Boone's ma had me play bass, we were so far at the gigs, I never saw a bass up close. You know, now you could see on the album covers it only had 4 strings, but I didn't really know they were bigger strings, you know? So we thought they were guitars with only 4 strings. Didn't really know they were bigger strings. It was really strange when I first saw a bass. I remember we started high school and I was bragging to some guy about playing bass, you know, 10th grade. But anyway, I see this guitar, you know, with these bridge cables, and this guy sees me in the store. And he sees me, you know, tripping out on this. He goes, what are you looking at? I go, God damn, look at this thing. And he goes, well, I thought you were a bass player. I said, I am. He goes, well, that's a bass. And I said, oh, I know that. But I fucking didn't know that. I'd never seen one. It blew my mind.
And we used to sit there and like maybe play Smoke on the Water over and over again, you know.
One riff.
And it took about maybe two years before we figured that, you know, you have to tune together.
You know, the tuning the strings, they get tighter or looser. They said they didn't think it was a matter of tuning them. They just thought like some guys liked them loose and some guys liked them tight. So they were just like, oh, I like mine tight. Oh, I like mine loose. You know, I'm just gonna rock.
It was on the TV. Yeah, it's hard to believe. Enough food coupons. Everyone with the same clothes on. Their minds weep like caged sheep. Standing around preaching. Gotta believe in successful. They won't feel fucking ready. Remember the American will soon be history.
We used to get together in my room. It was these old projects, these Navy projects that were condemned back in the 40s. And we'd sit there and rehearse, you know, or not rehearse, we'd
It was your house, too.
sit there and play like one riff, you know, over and over again. And my mom was very supportive, you know, she let us do it even though she hated it, you know, she liked it.
We did have a band called the Bright Orange Band in high school, not writing our own songs. And then we played a party and we tried out for a talent show, which we lost terribly. Yeah, here's San Pedro High School. This is where we graduated in '76, all 3 of us.
Both of them had moms that supported what they were doing. Never said, oh, why don't you guys quit this shit? They were gun-ho on it. And I think that has a lot to do with it when your parents are supportive of your talents or your arts.
I was very excited for them. And I went to as many things as I could go to. And I thought it was really wonderful that they did this themselves. They didn't have a lot of adult support.
Graduate high school, we're 18 years old. D. Boone's ma dies that month. She dies at 8. When we're 18, it really tore our lives apart. Especially D. Boone's family just collapsed because she was strong pillar.
Mom was basically everything to him. I mean, he talked a lot about her, and when she passed away, D. Boone's life changed.
Okay, this is a couple of spiels that I've written down on the road. It's out to all you mothers and fathers. Create forums in which your children can learn the beauty of the world through the arts, so they can pass it on to their children. That's what my parents did for me.
We are tools of the industry. And laundry, who's still like energy. Stand here naked, I stand here naked. Both on the pavement, wow, we different.
comes in '76 too, the year we graduated. And what struck us about punk, well, the big thing about it right off the bat was, man, these guys are all weirdos, but they don't care. In fact, they kind of celebrate it. So, in a lot of ways, it was a perfect scene for us. You know, it was like all these misfits.
Punk rock at the time wasn't a term for a set of musical parameters. It wasn't at all. It wasn't a term for, you know, how you, what kind of amp you used and how you set it and what kind of clothes you wore, and that was the great thing about it. I mean, punk rock was kind of like immediacy, intensity, honesty, expression, exploring things that interested them and exploring them really hard.
Now this thing, it's Petco now. Okay, but one of the, there used to be a little dealio here. This was Chuck's Sound of Music. This is where I bought my first T-Rex records, Cali, my Creedence records, where I saw my first bass, where we met Roy Mendez Lopez. But mostly was the instruments they had too were school things, right? Horns and stuff like this. But they actually had a couple Fenders. Like most stores do not have Fenders. It's so much different now, the culture for music. And if you're a young person, so much easier to be in a band. Some people, it's so funny when people talk about the quote, good old days, you know, because in a lot of ways they were lame ass. They were, you know, the people who made music and were in bands were in a whole nother world, far from you. Come on. You couldn't have that. Yeah, even the skateboards, you know, clay wheels, you couldn't go in the street. Well, those were scooters. Same idea, you know. We were more kept in our place. You know, nowadays, you're kept in your place more by your mind, more by the herd mentality than actually having the material and wherewithal to do things.
I got a gun, my hand. 6 slugs, 6 points of view. Materialism. So I got a book in my hand. 50,000 words, 50,000 translations. Idealism.
Well, it's no mystery how I met these guys. Even though we're all the same age and we did go to the same school and graduate the same year, I didn't know them till after high school was over. And I met Mike at a friend's house. I think it was the time when he passed out in the bathroom and locked the door on all of us. What? Then he said, hey, join my band. So I said, all right, dude. And I met D-Boon. What possessed you?
I always thought that was really open-minded of him, especially in those days where people hated, you know, 99% people hated punk. They thought it was an insane, horrible thing that anybody could be part of. And Georgie kind of saw a lot like us too, you know, hey, this is an opportunity to play music, play our own thing.
I think George was the first guy that I ever felt was playing funk rhythms, playing like a, you know, like Parliament Funkadelic, and playing really fast, playing and he would, plus his stick stuck in his sock. That was a nice touch.
It was no joke. They could really play. George, man, George is powerhouse.
He drives with his upper body. Most drummers, they'll lead with their, for the most part, with their kick drum and then everything else, but not George.
He's a real musician. All three of them were, but George had crazy chops where you would just watch him doing, just over under hi-hat stuff. Like Buddy Rich kind of, where is that coming from? Obviously he had the chops together.
He was just as much a central core of the musical sphere that they were spinning as, the bass and guitar and vocals. He wasn't drumming along, he was drumming with.
I hadn't played drums that long before I started recording, maybe a year and a half. And I think that you try so hard to play that you really make an overall effort to really try and make parts sound right, that you come up with things that maybe someone never heard before or something, or just you find a way to make them work, without being too influenced by other drummers that were progressively better than you.
I'm gonna say fair privilege. Privilege and court school in the style. Louder, muffler, flapping. They can play the miniature role. Pace, sad, syrup, lucky, total. Like a chunk on the sun. Put your heart hold on.
This band in 1979 called the Reactionaries with me, D. Boone, George Hurley, and a guy named Martin Tamburovich singing.
We saw a lot of rock concerts, big shows for them, the California Jam. We used to go all the time, and we were under the impression you had to be part of the special elite to do music. The other way, it was like models, you just learned that song somehow in the bedroom, you played it, and you got joy out of it. We didn't think you could actually do them in front of the people.
We never thought
when we saw
performers.
these other lame dudes doing it, we thought, whoa, that's not the point. The point is just trying to get away with whatever you can. You don't have to be part of any machine, except maybe your own.
We went to the Clash played in Pedro in 1979. Well, the Clash played up in Santa Monica, but we went to the gig, and Black Flag was handing out flyers.
We had thousands of flyers, and we were putting them on every car at the parking lot for the Civic, and and we were passing them out to all the different people who came in and out. And we met Mike Watt and D. Boone. There they were, from Pedro, where we were putting the show on.
And they couldn't believe there was a Pedro band, because we said we had a band. We couldn't believe it, too. There was going to be a gig in our town. It was in Hollywood, So they said, well, why don't you play? So this ends up the Reactionaries' first gig.
Actually, our first show was in San Pedro with Black Flag, Plugs, Alley Cats, and the Descendants. And
I think it's in February of 1979. And it was over here at a team post. This was very heavy hood at the time. Still is pretty gnarly. They had these things in the 60s and early 70s called team posts. They try to give kids things to do. See, there's 4 apartments here, but this was a little hall. And they had fixed it up really nice, And here, Dukowski rented it. And all these people from Hollywood came down. And
the cops had to lock all these people from the suburbs in because the locals were going to kill them because they wrecked their toilet. It's funny how hardcore is supposed to be kind of revolutionary, but it's not. In a lot of ways, it works against the people they're supposedly supposed to support. Maybe that's why a lot of it went racist and skinhead and stuff. Because it's like playground to me, a lot of it. We used it for music, for freedom, to do what we wanted. But as far as, I couldn't believe it. They come down here in this poor neighborhood and they wreck these people's team posts they just fixed up.
This is one of the reasons why Reactionaries broke up. I mean, it was also an idea of D. Boone's. He didn't think we needed a singer. Stuff wanted just to be a trio. So he breaks up the band, and we actually, Georgie joins this new wave band up in Hollywood called Hey Taxi. Anyway, here's the apartment. And there's the window, that window right there. That's the bedroom. That's where we started the Minutemen. That's where we wrote all our first batch of songs. And Joe Beiser's living downstairs.
And I heard someone working on a Who song upstairs, and that's when I was into punk rock, and I thought, why would someone be playing the Who, you know? So I open the door, and there's this chubby guy with kind of long hair, and he has an army jacket and a pill button. Oh, hi, guys. I just heard you play. I thought I'd come down and say hello. And we started to talk some more, and then he was telling me he was in another band before, and he said it was the Reactionaries. And then I remembered meeting him that night when Mike broke his bass. So then we started talking some more, and he came in, and Jack met him, and we were hanging out, and we became friends at that point.
You son of a mother, you son of a father, you beside you, and look at we put together a pull apart, lamb's conscience, sure you don't remember. Ain't no fucking way.
So the Minutemen get together with his drummer, Frank Tonchi. Get together with him actually at the end of February. And we do a gig in April with Black Flag.
And Greg Ginn of Black Flag saw us our first gig as Minutemen when we got rid of the singer. We changed our name to Minutemen, and he said, you want to make a record at our first gig? Couldn't believe it.
And then a month later, we do a gig at Harbor College here. I went to school too. I got my degree. That I never used. I majored in punk rock. With plugs and the gears. But the drummer freaks out after the gig. Thinks punk rock is an insane scene and quits.
They were going to record their first single, and I guess Frank got cold feet and didn't want to do it. What the hell? Said, Mike, I'll do it for you. It was 7 songs.
So that's where we get Georgie, you know, the next month. Teach him all the songs, and in third week in July, we record the first Minutemen record, Paranoid Time.
I told him I'd never play with them again. And that's where Minutemen took off from there.
Don't preach a structure, a society, putting ideas of reality. Have words like freedom in comic cars. Have words like hate, war, and all is lost. I can't follow a man on a white horse. Dreams of control, they all look to course. Tyranny is the real word. Voices and opinions are never heard. We all work in the working mass. We all work for the ruling class. State relies on the working man. Who bears a party and the fatherland. They all kneel to the party elite. All enslaved to the fascists.
We had in our mind like Black Flag was sort of that's like SST. At some point in that time frame, SST number 2 came out, which was the Minutemen Paranoid Time EP.
I thought it was kind of interesting that Black Flag would use what little money they had to put out another band almost immediately on SST, and oh, who's this band? It turned out it wasn't a band that sounded like Black Flag at all. It wasn't a band that really that much sounded like anybody.
It was the perfect follow-up to Nervous Breakdown, I thought.
The songs were appealing because although they were political, they weren't didactic. They dealt with politics in a really impressionistic way. And I just said, well, this is one of the most original things I've ever heard.
Paranoid Time, the song I thought was really great, and that really,
That was the one that I think, coming out of a hardcore background like I was, I mean, that was the one that was closest to my genre, where I could go, okay, yeah, these guys are really contributing something here with this song.
When you listen to Paranoid Time, you have to realize that these weren't just songs. These people were really paranoid.
This one's for Ronald Reagan. I try to work and I keep thinking of World War III. I try to talk to girls and I keep thinking of World War III. Like 60 times to make sure I keep thinking of World War III. I got a mile and really kind of stat. A forehead to be a giant forehead. I don't hear about crime anymore. So many goddamn scared faces. I keep thinking of Russia, Mother Russia.
Seeing D. Boon just sort of like rocking, jumping up and down, just blowing out these songs, just like completely, utter conviction. And then, the drummer playing all this kind of wigged out, like kind of prog jazz, fury drums. And so it kind of blew minds.
The record just blew our minds. It was not like any music we'd ever listened to. We couldn't understand how they would have played it. We couldn't get any idea of who they were. We couldn't picture them. The record just was a drawing, in the front. The lyrics are so provocative, really like head-scratching. It was something you could really spend some time with. And it's a short record. Was it like 3.5 minutes long or something?
The songs really went by fast. I mean, they really played a lot of songs in a set. And even if they had riffs, by the time anybody, had something to hold on to, they were on to the next song.
You gotta understand, we were never called Minutemen for like minute songs. Like we always got explained by people. It was this parody on these right-wingers, and the whole idea of rock bands being big giants, we would be like minute men.
I can't imagine in the early days bands like Husker Du, Minutemen playing arenas. It was too intimate. Their performances, they don't work with all the smoke and the lighting and the special effects and the airplanes and whatever you have to do when you get on a big stage. That was not part of the scene. Part of the scene was you get up, you play your heart out.
Yeah, let's take the essence of the tune and just do it, and that's that. Nobody'd done that before. All the other bands were doing like, holding to verses and choruses. And
so many of the songs, the lyrics, when you read them, are just like haiku, or it's like it's like a proposition by Wittgenstein. It's just like a really simple statement, you know what I mean? And it doesn't have like a lot of floral language surrounding it. It's just like a little kernel of an intellectual idea. That always really appealed to me.
It didn't blow away the hardcore kids or whatever. I think it was a little too maybe grown up, and it was a different kind of intelligence. It wasn't like police beat me kind of thing, and it didn't have that agony.
Some people just didn't get it.
Being spit on kind of sucks, but you can't see where it's coming from, so you can't really blame anybody.
Let's spit on all these kids from Orange County. They just took after the English really well, and they would spit.
But anyhow, I mean, I just got the overspray. Mike and Dee, they got most of it. Yeah, they were always getting colds. I never knew why, but.
We're doing it without 2 strings. Is that punk enough for you guys spitting? I gotta see your band, all right? Our band, how punk rock. Spit on me. Get belligerent, right on.
was singing and spit was just going right in his mouth. They did not care. And they just finished their whole set, and the crowd was kind of like, and after they finished, I think the crowd kind of like changed their mind.
You'd have to do a lot of growing up all of a sudden. If you couldn't get through that, I mean, where you're singing and some kid gobs of spit wad right in your mouth.
And I just thought it was funny the way they just moved back off the stage. Like, we're not going anywhere. You guys aren't getting rid of us that easy.
Your face fell into my eyes. I heard your friend call me a communist.
Didn't know that many art people. Boom was artistic, could paint and stuff like that. But there no culture art, you know? I guess everybody comes to it in different ways, but the way we came to it was through punk. Which is kind of hard for some people to expect, to believe. Because they see some kind of violent movement, people beating each other up, spitting on each other and shit like that. And there was some stuff like that too, but especially in the 70s and the older punk, there was a lot of art people. They had a big influence on us. For D. Boone, I know it brought out stuff that was already into him. For me, got me really curious. I started reading about these things like Dada and Futurist and Surrealist, stuff like this. Pettibone turns me onto John Coltrane and Ornette Coleman.
There's so many ideas in their music, and Mike's bass playing is so over the top and so full of ideas, and the band has such an amazing spirit. The Minutemen give off the vibe of the excitement of that more than just about any band I can think of. They just seem like so happy and inspired to be there up there playing, you know, and. So that really does make me feel good to think that, you know, I played some kind of role in making Mike want to do that.
Rock and roll, as usual, was a fairly toxic concept. That rock and roll was once an antidote to all this crap, and I always regarded the Minutemen as still part of the solution.
But there was a kind of a respect you had to not be clone. It was like if you were going to be part of this, you had to contribute. You didn't want to be a cookie cutter Xerox machine kind of thing. So you had to come up with your own ideas, and this is what the Minutemen were doing. And then, well, some in those days, but a lot later on, and then with the hardcore people too, it's like people would say, how can you call this punk? You know? Why is it punk? You don't sound punk, you don't look punk. You know, and that would always strike us as such narrow-minded shit.
The Minutemen, I think those guys were total punks in a sense of they were not fitting in the mold of what a punk should theoretically look like, you know, playing blues to punks, that's pretty punk. And Minutemen going out there being Pedro dudes doing their whole total thing.
Some of their music was so abrasive sounding, especially compared to the kind of more simple or kind of raging kind of punk rock. Like their stuff was more weirdly off kilter and kind of herky jerky, and just wouldn't give you the the really what you kind of wanted to hear.
and reason to use some drugs. Sup in a dish, left in trash. American trash, ain't much could ruin a good time. Aspects are all for Americans who won, I said, the election. He laughed, I felt like a gringo. They put us on, they had some fun with us. Why can't you be time while the soldiers in the street? Why spend the 4th in someone else's country?
The Minutemen, to me, were this band that sort of stood out on the Rodney on the Rock record, the first Rodney on the Rock Volume 1 record. I had sort of heard their name in like Flipside and stuff, and I didn't really get a handle on them. I thought their name kind of stuck out because it wasn't the usual kind of West Coast punk rock name in a way.
They weren't Berkeley School of Music taught musicians, you know. They were just three dudes from Pedro, you know, who just happened to play and just had that you know, that mix that they just gelled.
They got lumped in with the hardcore scene, but they were anything but. I mean, they would cover Creedence Clearwater and Blue Oyster Cult, and to them that was just sort of their way of expressing we're not really just punk rock, we're part of this bigger continuum of rock and roll.
And D. Boone, I think, was an inspiration. He's large, you know, and watching him play guitar, and his fingers were real fat, but he could bust out the greatest leads. And when it came down to playing, you know, they were on top of it. They just rattled off the songs, 32 song sets, just bam.
They were just great players, and they kind of brought this whole other level of like musicianship to this, you know, underground music scene.
They had a lot of comedy in their music too. They could be funny. I mean, if you read their lyrics, and sometimes pissed off, and Dennis seemed a bit angry sometimes in some of his lyrics about certain things. I guess maybe that's just stuff he felt inside and it was coming across in their music. And that's what I sense in that kind of music. And they're nice guys. They're always fun to be around and stuff, you know. Kind of like the Three Stooges of, in a good way.
And they had the Three Stooges plastered in the back of their van, in the window. So when they drove by, you'd see the window and it'd be the big poster of the Three Stooges.
Maybe more like Abbott and Costello with somebody else and put their own in the mix.
Mike and Dee. No, I'm just kidding. It's Laurel and Hardy.
Mike and Dee Boone, it was like twins. They had like a secret language. And you could just see them, I mean, when they would communicate, they didn't even have to really speak. They were just this kind of, these little evil twins that would just sort of push each other into things. And
Mike Watt, to me, was the heart of the band. He was the heartbeat. He was the bass player, right? Ba-boom, boom, boom, ba-boom. He was the heartbeat. And D. Boone, to me, was the soul.
They lived what they said. They believed in it 100%, 1,000%. And the more you spent time with them, the more you realized that this was so real. And it just felt so good to be a part of something that was absolute truth, as truthful as it could be, you know, with its faults, you know, and they were the first ones to admit if they were wrong.
You know, they made their own world, you know, in a rock band, and so, and that's, you know, that's even more rare than just being a good band.
They were all, George, D. Boone, Mike, all great musicians and performers and writers.
But the Minutemen really, there wasn't very many punk rock bands that could play at all. Minutemen could actually play their instruments.
they were so unusual on stage, especially this interplay between Mike and Dee. You know, Dee being this like really heavy-set guy, like bouncing around like he was lighter than air on the guitar, and Watt being really just being Watt on stage, I guess, and this great drummer in George Hurley, like playing really different stuff than you would imagine a hardcore type band's drummer playing. I mean, he was such a finessey drummer that, you know, had all these different things he could do. And I guess in general, all three of them were like that. They were real players in a certain hand, you know, and that sort of put them aside from the simple three-chord punk rock thing.
But it was, you know, I'd always try to push articles on them. I'd try to sneak them into, like, you know, people would say, like, oh, you know, I want to think on hardcore bands, so I'd put them in. People would say, oh, I want to think on psychedelic bands. So I'd like, oh, yeah, I'll put them in. You know, stuff like that. But, because they really, you know, you could sort of squeeze them into almost any kind of generic overview of contemporary LA stuff, because, you know, they really were unique in terms of what they did.
It was just a brilliant moment in time, and that they had that energy to transcend any and all musical boundaries. You know, without getting bogged down as a rockabilly band or as a hardcore thrash band, or as that they could, you know, not really fit or belong anywhere, which was their part of their magic.
Romantic to my choir, his body's only a skeleton. A series of points, no height, length, or width, and his body feels like his only connection between the yelling and the sleep. His life's the toughest riddle. He's tough, double, ecstasy, stop sign, tough, double, ecstasy, stop sign.
We were recording the Fat EP with Spot, and Spot in between takes basically was editing the Punchline EP for the Minutemen, and I hadn't heard too much of the Minutemen, and I was hearing snippets of Punchline all the time, and I was just like, wow, these guys are really wild, they're really different, bizarre music, you know. To me it sounded very bizarre.
Some of these songs have like only 2 lines of lyrics. They're so bizarre. So a lot of these songs aren't even a minute. A lot of them are 40 seconds and stuff, 38 seconds. Again, they weren't supposed to stand on their own. They were supposed to be part of this big river.
And the ability for them to just kind of shift gears from song to song in the way they did, where in a way the Minutemen sets kind of created their own momentum. It wasn't about so much individual songs, it was about the entire process that you were going through.
It seemed abstract to me and angular kind of music, you know. I was just, wow, you know, I was listening to that, and the songs were so short too. I wasn't used to that. I thought, well, you know, just when I didn't think the song was done, that they'd stop, or Mike was kind of nervous and he'd thump some few more notes and mumble something, and then just kick right into the next song.
As you distance between centuries. You poser!
So with Minutemen, we really wanted to have more of our own sound, and so we used these. Still, you know, the culture of copying records and stuff. We were still influenced by other bands, so we had these bands from England called Pop Group and Wire,
Wire are quite aware of the fact that we were influential on a few of the kind of hardcore bands in America, and I think specifically how it happened was that Wire's kind of minimality, the kind of brutal way of like you can do a song with one chord, Wire do it, why don't we do it? And I think that had an effect in America in a way that it didn't have perhaps in Britain.
And pop group took Captain Beefheart and mixed it with Funkadelic. Funk music had big influence on me because I couldn't really hear, except for guys like Jack Bruce and John Ellis, I couldn't really hear bass. I couldn't hear the bass on a Creedence song. So it had big influence on me. And then Captain Beefheart, when we first heard punk, you know, we thought Beefheart, Stooges, these guys were way ahead. They already were punk without there being that label yet. I gotta tell you how excited we were to be asked to do this album. I mean, Punchline came out in December, and they pressed 300 and they all sold right away. So I think maybe that's why Greg asked us. But he was a big fan of the band too. So we started writing songs for our first real album.
We went back to Dennis's place in Torrance. He had an apartment there, and he played us an acetate of his new record, What Makes a Man Start Fires. And that's when I thought, no, these guys just ain't your garden variety punk rock thing. There's something really good going on here.
They were moving beyond the initial aesthetic, and they were showing the rest of the punk rock community that you could make a more expansive statement.
When they put that out, then it was like, oh. You know, sort of like when the Germs put out their first record. Everyone kind of took them for granted, and then they realized, oh my God, this is art.
They were exciting, they were different. They had a lot of elements to them, and they mixed them up as they went along too, so that was cool. It's almost like a, not avant-garde, but kind of like avant-garage.
The pieces were so short, and I found that attractive and fascinating. The Pettibone drawing on the cover was really fascinating. Everything about it fascinated me.
That's when you notice that Mike stopped playing with a pick and started playing with his fingers. Man, they really got funky on that record.
There's a song on this record called The Anchor. Georgie wrote the words. It was about a dream he had. And it's our first song where we go over 2 minutes. I mean, it's 2 minutes and 5 seconds or something. No, it's 2:30. Whew. It's our opus.
With the wolves in our face.
People ask me about that song, why I wrote it. I was kind of feeling insecure one day about writing songs that had tense ramifications, you know, that weren't maybe musical. And then I thought, you know, I never knew what words were about really as a boy. They were always like some kind of lead guitar. But except for Bob Dylan, I used to hear him a lot. And his words I thought were like sort of like pop talking to you or something. So I thought, oh man, it's okay if I write songs like that, because Bob Dylan wrote propaganda songs. That's why I wrote that. Some of the people thought I was really angry at Bob Dylan and everything. I'm telling you, this Minutemen were insular. A lot of our things kept way inside us and never really got out. So to really know about us, I think you have to ask about us, these things, because it doesn't seem like anything got out that was understood by people easily. From our name, to our records, to our songs. It all got twisted up. That's okay. That's why we do things like this.
I'm waiting in the prison. I'm collecting information, information. Dylan, no propaganda. Dylan, no propaganda. And a vessel on my windows and my food. Location and moration outside my room. Dylan, from propaganda zone. Dylan, from propaganda zone.
It was really easy writing songs for T-Bone. I'd never have to show him guitar parts. And sometimes I would write chords on guitar. You know, show him the chords. But a lot of times I could just write the bass line, and because we had grown up together, he could immediately come up something compatible with it, complement it. And he was very generous that way.
D. Boone almost had this, like, you know, Chank, that guy Jimmy Nolan that plays with James Brown. He had that kind of, that funky edge to the when he played the Telecaster.
He was kind of a punk rock, Wes Montgomery without being that breezy, like a really aggressive jazz player.
You know, there was a lot of stuff you could hear in it. I mean, I could hear some of this country influence, like, you know, Bakersfield country western kind of stuff that was in his sound, because I grew up listening to some of that stuff as well. But I think more than anything, he just developed this sound that was uniquely his own.
He was kind of a contradiction as far as guitar styles go. I mean, he had all that, and to him, it was all music.
And his tone was really spiky. It was really trebly, which I learned later from Mike was completely political. It was a political decision for them to separate bass and treble in a very, very distinctive way as sovereign states, political sovereignty anyway.
He had a guitar sound that was like a buzzing insect and a dentist drill all at the same time that really cut through the mix. and just real angular and sharp. And he started developing this really great style that didn't sound like anybody else.
Yeah, it was really brittle and bright. If I were to get it sound, I would try something like that. It was even, yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Is that close enough?
I just remember D. Boon careening around the stage and into the audience and bowling people over and not missing a lick. And I just was so blown away by that.
And Mike Watt would, do this thing where he'd be, standing with his legs spread apart in one leg, he'd just be shaking, and he'd puff his cheeks out and as he's playing because he's just, was so intense. And George Hurley had that big lock of hair that would just, he'd always pour it up and then he'd take it out. And
since my legs and arms were busy, all I could do was shake my hair, so that's what I did.
D. Boon's just bouncing all over the stage, and never saw a fat guy move that much, I guess.
There would be this interlude where they'd play just an instrumental part, and D. Boon would just do this, crazy dance. He did it every night, and he had the worst shoes I've ever seen anybody wear. It was like, I was trying to talk him into getting some tennis shoes, something that would, and he's, no, this is, part of my uniform,
I mean, when he hit the ground or hit that stage, things were really...
I think that really amazed them. They weren't really used to seeing a short-haired guy as kind of pretty rotund and round as D. Boon was, to be jumping and just going crazy in the air like him.
Buzzer Hal, we made it for $50. It's the last record I really play with a pick. And half of it is done with Spot, the guy who mixed all the Minutemen records up to this point.
I think Watt and D. Boon were both saying, let's do something really simple. So they were talking about going back to 4-track. So I told Watt, I said, hey, let's forget about this multi-track stuff. Let's just set it up and do it live to 2-track. One take. Bam. It's done. You mix it while you're playing it and be done with it. And that's what we did.
The other side, we met this guy named Ethan James, who had a studio called Radio Tokyo, and he was putting together their compilation. He said, if you give me a song for that compilation, I'll record a song free for you. So we went and did 3 songs. Put them together and told them it was one big song. So we did the other side for free. I put a letter from Richard Meltzer on the back.
I wrote to Mike, oh, sorry, I got to go to this wedding. I think it was Vinnie Golia, the saxophone player, was getting married. And so he actually put my letter on one of the back of one of the albums.
Richard Meltzer was a big hero to us. He had written lyrics for the Blue Oyster Cult. He used to write for Cream. We used to read his rock right as teenagers. And we got to meet him, and he wrote us a letter. And I put it on the back with a Raymond drawn. Actually, the album cover, it was going to be, I found a picture in National Geographic of all these tropical tree frogs, all the bright colors, but we found out how much it cost for the color separation, $1,000. So I asked Joe Beiser just to draw something about me and D. Boone, and came up with this in one night. D. Boone also had a drawing on it too. He's getting yelled at work again. Eat your lunch at noon, understand? Yeah, some guy eating at the wrong time. The fall of '83, and we all had this whole batch of songs ready to go for an album. Then Husker Du comes to town,
and they had found out that Husker Du was putting out a double live record, so they went back to my studio and started writing more songs. And I guess like within 2 weeks, they had 20 more songs written, and we're back in the studio again.
Double nickels on the dime. Remembering 46 songs for a record is it's kind of crazy. It took us a long time, I think about a week or two. You know, you do things when you're young that, man, sometimes you look back and it's kind of amazing. I don't think I've gotten any better though. I listen to those records, I wonder how I did some of that stuff.
This one is a right with position. This looks like a dork.
Part of the joke, since we didn't have a concept like Husker did, we had to kind of make one up. And so we did two themes paralleling each other. One was Amagama, this Pink Floyd record, which was a double album, and he each got a solo song, like a quarter of one of the records. And then this Sammy Hagar. Sammy Hagar had come out with a song, He Couldn't Drive 55. And he called himself the Red Rocker. So he said, well, we'll drive 55 and be crazy with the music instead of crazy with the cars, because we thought his music was pretty safe. That's where it comes from. Double nickels on the dime means going exactly 55 miles an hour, which was the freeway speed in those days. Jimmy Carter in the 70s had lowered it to conserve fuel because of the oil crunch. But no one got it. No one got the Sammy Hagar part. No one got the Amagama part.
And then, you know, leading up to Double Nickels on the Dime, which I think is the greatest record of all time.
Double Nickels is one of the most incredible outpourings of creativity ever.
I mean, I'm sure you're probably going to get everyone in this documentary saying that over and over again, but it's true.
It was this whole new direction, and it just seemed like music was just
it was just going to explode into this cacophony of color and sound and creative ideas, and it seemed so limitless.
Probably the best record I ever played on, and it came about totally by accident, just because of this process we were engaged in, you know? Trying to push our limits, push ourselves, push the scene.
They did Project Mersh, and that record, that was a confounding record. Because on the one hand, it was clearly an attempt to be commercial. But are they trying to hit it right? You know, like where I was trying to get my head around it. And what was even more puzzling about it is how much I love the record. It has one of the greatest covers of all time, if you ask me.
So D-Boon made this painting of a boardroom where the guys, some record putzes are like scheming, oh, what will we do to make them accessible? I got it, we'll have them write hit songs.
Project Mersh was no more a career move than our first record, Paranoid Time. It's just a different way for us to tell our story. We were trying to get rid of the chains people had on our description of us. They wouldn't let us be Minutemen. We had to be filed under Dewey Decimal System under punk/funk. So we said, okay, let's use choruses and fade-outs. And it's only Mersh because we said it was Mersh. It sold half as much as our art record, Double Nickels on the Dime.
Project Mersh was, I think, a conscious attempt at actually writing a song that could get played on the radio. Of course, it didn't. I mean, radio at the time was more interested in men at work or men without hats, you know, not the Minutemen.
Project Mersh, we actually practiced these songs in Wilmington, in Saccharin Trust, Jack Brewer's garage.
The Minutemen were rehearsing in the garage, and I had this neighbor who I'd known for years. He called me one day while I was in my backyard. I said, Jack, we talked about that band you got rehearsing back there. I said, oh, I'm real sorry. I'll ask them to turn it down. He said, no, the music's fine. But in between the songs, these guys just yelling and hollering and cursing. It's really disturbing.
And then sometimes Michael he'd come back and he'd be like, you know, Dennis is writing these songs that are like, you know, I don't know if I want to play songs like that. And, and I go, well, you know, you told him to do what he feels is right?
Right,
you know?
right.
And so the song differences were really extreme. Sometimes you'd see these.
Yes.
Because Michael would write about something he saw on, like, you know, some talk show or something, and Dennis would write about total political unrest in another country, right?
Oh, they did. They'd fight over ideas. They'd fight over a lot of different things. But, you know, you don't fight with a stranger the way you fight with someone you love.
And that cover of Buzzer Howl Under Heat, or whatever the name of the record is, I think that's the Joe Baiza drawing. That was them. Either about the Communist Manifesto or workers' rights in Cuba or whatever, they would just...
The relationship between these three guys,
It was, as far as I can tell, it was many things all at once.
Man, they're just going at it, and they were both in the front seat. Dee was driving. We're saying, keep your eyes on the road, you know, and he's like pointing, and they get real into it, you know, like, and finally, like, I don't know if it was Mike or Dee first, he says, when we get home, the band's over, that's it. And he goes, well, George is coming with me, George is going to play in my band. And then Dee goes, George, and like hits him like in a leg, you know. And George like takes the headphones out. He says, George, when I get back to Pedro, I'm going to start my own band. Are you going to play with me, or are you going to play with him? And like, George said something like, I don't play with either of you. I'm going to start my own band, you know. It's like, screw both of you.
You can't have a revolution without pounding your fist on the table a little bit. And that was the nature of their relationship, that, you know, they used to get into it quite a bit. But it was always, you know, I mean, they were best friends.
There's no tension in between writing songs. We all write different stuff. We have our different ideas.
We want a whole bunch of dimensions to make it look real.
Yeah, we're into the freedom, you see. One of the things that makes us a band is that we all choose our own destinies and what we want to put into the band.
And we don't collaborate on lyrics hardly. Dee gets his, I get mine, George gets his.
Yeah.
I want some too.
And the music is what we mostly collaborate on.
That's what you can share on. The statement thing,
See,
that's
words
real
to us are constantly changing, you know.
Real personal,
It's
too.
the music that is what we spend a whole lot of time on, you know. Usually the lyrics we just write down in one day, and there they are.
He writes his in one day. I take 10 minutes.
Yes, we have a new album coming out November, well, in the middle of November sometime. You can't really predict what exact day it's going to come out on. But, it's called Three-Way Tie for Last.
On SST Records.
Yes. There's 5 copy songs on it.
Three-Way Tie, us doing these covers, you know, we're now confident enough or secure enough to laugh at our own background. So there's Creedence, there's Blue Oyster Cult, there's Rocky Erickson.
The Three-Way Tie for Last, we made a conscious effort to just make it a rock record with us.
But I sang one of the songs over the phone, you know, with the
So
guitar.
it's artistic.
Yeah, we're trying to give
We use acoustic
all
guitars.
kinds of things. They're just devices. It's all for us to use. Fade-outs are the same as a horn or the saw. I like the saw, that's a new angle.
Just the instrumental cuts of Three-Way Tie. Guy was so excited. You know, the vocals weren't dubbed yet, but he was just so excited, just playing the tape for me while I was at his house. That's what memory I have of him. He loved what he's doing so much.
I know that Three-Way Tie isn't one of Mike's favorite records, but I think it's a great statement of the way, again, the two of them interact. It's like Mike's side and Dee Boone's side, and yet there's crossover. You know, there's a song on each that's kind of from the other, and there's some of my lyrics on both. You know, and there's this sort of completely intertwined effect, even though it's also very much like nobody's the leader, and we're equal, and we're working class, and we're a democracy, and you know, it's exactly how they were.
A friend of mine told me once that Don Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart, told him that he went to go see Thelonious Monk play at Carnegie Hall, and he walked in, and there was a grand piano. It was a solo performance. There was a grand piano with a pot of flowers on it, and Thelonious Monk walked in, like looked at the audience, threw the pot of flowers in the piano, slammed the lid down, and sat down and went bang and hit one note and left. And Beefheart said, you know, it's the greatest note I ever heard. You know what I mean? And that's like the kind of feeling I get from a Minutemen note on Three-Way Tie for Last. Like they play really simple, beautiful songs, but you can tell that they could do anything.
One of our philosophies in the Minutemen also has to do with that all people, you know, there should be more interaction with music and everyday people, you know, because that's what we are.
This idea Dee Boone had that working people should be able to go to gigs. So hey, let's start the gig at 7:30. Let's put it where you don't have to drive 30 miles each way. This was intense. You know, this wasn't like, hey, let's do a showcase so we can get signed and be a rock band. This wasn't his sensibility at all, or none of ours, you know. This was like, I think it was because our experience with arena rock and going to the gigs at the Forum and Long Beach Arena and stuff, and just being so much a spectator that when we came up on this new scene, it wasn't about spectators. It was more about totally being a participant.
You know, we come from working class families, and we play our music the way we want to do it, and it's, you know, people are into it, and we would just want to let people know that there should be a band on every block. There should be a nightclub on every other block and a record label on every other block after that.
Of course, being weirdo, I mean, you can understand why things got orthodox and kind of uniform and conservative. Attacking forces from the outside, people hating the scene and stuff, so people bunched together defensively. Young people coming in, things getting very social, so you don't want to be too experimental with the music or something. You can see, I'm always getting asked these days by younger people, oh, what do you think of this new pop punk and all this, and there's no real punk, and I mean, things happen. I don't really fault people. Everybody can't be born at the same time. Some people are born before, some people are born during, some people born after, and a lot of that's just circumstance. So what's really to be, the question is, what is to be done where you're at, and how are you going to do it? And actually, what we were coming on, I mean, it was new to us because we were finding out about it, but this is probably same kind of traditions people like Woody Guthrie were from, you know, and maybe some of them beboppers and stuff like this. Just taking things in their own hands.
Little man with a gun in his hand. 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 Little man with a gun in his hand.
Support all organizations that deal with oppression and stopping it.
So you psyched about the REM shows?
Yeah, should be fun. Okay, come on.
I would think though most people that are into REM are going to be into you guys.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
You know, because they're into us.
Right.
Should say something. It's really interesting how they, you know, how we even got on the bill was that, you know, Michael Snipe and their manager wanted us to play, but their label, you know, they wanted a band from their label to open up, and Snipe said, you know, no way, you know, we want them to play and they're going to, and the record label's not doing any of the promotion for it, so the band's doing that, so you know, it's something they want, and I really appreciate that.
That's pretty good.
And I remember the last gig of the tour, maybe it was in Charlotte. We're playing with REM. I mean, with them. It's their encore, and they have us come on. Georgie plays at floor tom, and me and D Boon played two of Pete Buck's guitars, and we did See No Evil. And a television song. And that actually is the last time I played with D Boon. I didn't even play bass. I played guitar. That turns out to be our last gig. And I had just gotten these 10 songs from Richard Meltzer, lyrics. And he wanted to record with us. And he'd play sax and sing. We'd play behind him. So I go over to D Boon's pad. And look, Richard written us 10 songs. I mean, we were so excited. He let me have those words. I'll think of licks. So that's the last time I saw him.
Space is young, his hands are old, past is empty, blind and cold.
Mike called me up. I was at home in bed. I was asleep. And he woke me up and told me that Dee got in an accident. It's kind of like having a hole where a heart was.
So December 22nd, 1985. Oh. Heavy day for me.
Sleeps at night, works a day, he does some hobbies, he needs some more hobbies.
This whole thing with D Boon, you know, and his mother, this idea where you make up your own entertainment, your own activities. I think it was really intense on us, you know, this whole idea of DIY and stuff. I guess there's a debate over this, you know, you want things for young people to do so they don't get in gangs and in trouble like this. But if things are too set up and stuff, you end up running a bunch of creating an army of robots anyway, you know. There comes a period when you're going to have to come up and do things, you know, become your own person, pick your own friends, your own guys you want to, you know, build dreams with and stuff. Big change in my life, meeting D Boon.
Our band can be your life. Real names be the truth. Me and Mike Watt, we played for years. And punk rock changed our lives. We're in punk rock up in Hollywood. Drove all the way up from San Pedro. We're fucking corn dogs. We'd go drinking pogo. Dylan to me. I could be in his songs. Me as his soldier child. Our band of scientists rock. First I was E. Bloom, Richard Hell, Joe Strummer, good old John Doe. Me and Mike just playing these here guitars.
Mike or George, you guys got any closing statements in reference to the Minutemen, in reference to this tour, the new album?
No, we jam Econo.
George? That's it.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mike.
We got these things.